But every time something goes in the basement, you put a similar sized box on the second floor. Where's your joy? So all of a sudden you had a basement, first floor, and second floor. Now you're only living in that first floor. You're shallowing your life. You're not
Mm.
feeling the hards, but you're not feeling the joys. And it's in that shallowing that relationships thin, that life gets flat, that we feel more lonely, that we experience burnout, that we have these surging depression and anxiety. And so it's a little counterintuitive if people are saying, I don't feel my full self. I don't feel like myself. And I'm saying, go into the basement. They're thinking, you're crazy, lady. You are crazy. And the anticipation of going into the basement and unpacking some of those boxes is so much worse than the actuality. And we've almost forgotten the joy of that second floor. That is where that delight is.
Driven by purpose, fueled by passion. My words got power, my thoughts have action. Motivation, stay gracious. That's greatness. Be audacious. Motivation. Be audacious. Innovation. Be audacious. Inspiration. Be bold. Motivation. Be audacious.
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast. A space is created to help you live your best audacious life ever. I truly appreciate you choosing to spend part of your day with us here. These conversations matter because you never know which insight might land exactly when you need it most. I often think of life like a house we're living in. Some rooms are bright, open, and easy to invite people into. These are the moments of joy, growth, confidence, and celebration. The rooms we are proud of. Other rooms are quieter, harder, maybe even uncomfortable. These are the spaces where grief, doubt, fear, and uncertainty live. Over time, many of us shut those doors and pretend those rooms do not exist. But here's the truth. You cannot fully live in a house if you only occupy part of it. Audacious living is about opening every door. It's about embracing both the highs and the lows, sharing what is real, listening inward, and redefining success in a way that actually feels like home. That is what we're here to explore today. Real conversations, real connections, resilience that moves us forward, and relationships that support us in every room of life. Today, I am joined by Camille Preston. She's a leadership psychologist, founder of AIM Leadership, and author of Living Real. Camille has spent over 2 decades helping leaders and organizations integrate psychology, authenticity, and purpose into how they live and lead. Her mission is to help people live fully, lead courageously, and redefine success by listening inward and honoring the full human experience. Camille is incredibly relevant to this episode because her work challenges the idea that success is appearances or achievements alone. Instead, she invites us to explore every room of our lives and not just the polished ones, and to recognize that deep relationships, self-awareness, and authenticity are what truly sustain us. This conversation is reflective and deeply human, as well as being honest. And we talk about authenticity, vulnerability, resilience, redefining success, and why quality relationships are essential for both happiness and longevity. So let's step inside. Here's my chat with Camille Preston. Enjoy. Hey, Camille, thank you for joining me here today on the Audacious Living Podcast. It is such a pleasure and a treat to spend time with you like this today. So thank you for being here.
Yes, let's dive in. I'm so excited.
I treat these conversations as opportunities to share insights, and I really do feel blessed to be able to sit down with individuals and to have something to share and offer the world. And a piece that that I think of it this way, and I framed it. I've said this before in the past: is here we are have an opportunity to have a dialogue. And individuals will eavesdrop on our conversation. We've got no idea who's out there listening. We have no idea what they're paying attention to. We have no idea what will resonate with them. But there could be something that they take from our chat that they can use in their own lives and put them in a better place, or change your trajectory. That is exciting. That's exciting. So that's my
Um,
thrill.
I love it. And I love this serendipity because we don't know what's going to come out, but it's going to be perfect for people who are listening, where they are, what they
That's right.
need. Yeah.
That's it. That's it. I agree. I agree. So, much of this conversation or dialogues we talk about is really encouraging individuals to live that best audacious life, right? And the key to understanding that is, life very much is a pathway, right? And we're on our individual path, doing our own thing, running into our own obstacles, facing our challenges, but finding a way to maneuver through them, outlast them, because on the other side of that is where all the greatness lies. And so, that's sort of how we like to frame things, and then we sort of get into your work, because you very much are interested in empowering individuals, right? From a standpoint of
Yeah.
authenticity, you've got a book, Living Real, that we'll talk about, and you really want to show individuals that through their own individualized actions, they can find their own version of success. And so maybe as a starting point, Camille, I'll get you to introduce yourself to our audience, explain the work that you do, and what's gotten you to the point that you're at now.
Oh, so much fun. So Camille Preston, founder of AIM Leadership. We've been had the business is 22 years old. And I think I'm the first business psychologist who went out and said, wait a minute, what I'm doing is so much more than executive coaching or organizational design. It's really pulling it all together and using psychology to help people really think about not only how do I be a better leader, but how do I live a life that's impactful, fulfilling, exciting, and engaging. And as you said, there's this new book that came out, and I think the story behind the book is a little funny and aligned
Yeah.
with what you're talked about, which is I had two books and two kids, and I was done, closed for business, no more. And December 8th at 4 a.m., there was like a knock on the door, pulled me out of a dead sleep, and there was an entire outline. And I rolled over. I said, two books, two kids, I'm done. No, thank you. But it kept knocking and it kept knocking. And finally, I was like, okay, I'll write it down. And then I said, if I'm meant to do this, like make it clear, make it easy, like open the pathways to do this. And like thing after thing happened where it was like, okay, I get it. I'm supposed to write the book. But the book is so aligned with what you described about living audaciously, which is that a great life is about the highs and the lows. It's about living all of it, not just the like Instagram worthy social media
Sure.
polished version.
Here
It's
I'm on
like
my
all
jet
of it.
plane looking great in my fancy mansion. That's more than
And
that.
like my kids are like bathed and not fighting and like getting A's. Yeah, exactly. Life is about those like messy moments that create the memories and the magic. And that's living real. And that's happening for in our personal lives, but it's also in corporations, right? Corporations have to see their full self to figure out what are the changes that they need to navigate going forward. So it's been quite a journey, an adventure, and a lot of twists and turns. So it's been fun.
Tell me about the realization point you came to when you recognized the connection between business and psychology.
That's a great point. So I was working with a woman who was in a large consulting firm, and she was transitioning out of the consulting firm. And she sent me an email basically saying, I'm going to be running a workshop on your business. It was July 25th, 2017. You need to be at this location at this time. And I had this moment. I was like, you're my client, but you're running a workshop on my business. And she kind of wanted to get her chops back. You know, she was going back into a different business and she wanted to kind of get back in the groove of it. But she sat me down and she said, I've worked with you for a year now. You are so much more than an executive coach. And it's a powerful reminder. So she mapped out the business, she like reframed it. And I had never really thought about the power of psychology in business and how much psychology impacts everything we do. And there's kind of a resistance to therapy. There's a resistance to psychology. And it should have, I came to this field working with police chiefs, police
Okay.
executives from large
Okay.
jurisdictions. So they don't like psychologists. So I should have thought about this sooner. But this delightful woman sat me down, rebuilt my business. And the timing was incredible because we really reframed how psychology impacts leadership. And then the pandemic, which was like so much psychology in business that
Sure.
really opened people up. Yeah. So she was phenomenal. And it was a reminder to never look a gift horse in the mouth, right? Someone wants to do something for your business just because the relationship was defined a different way. She's an absolute gem still in my life today. Yeah.
Those are great people to have in our lives. So I'm glad that she's was impactful in that way. And I love the idea too that lessons can come from all directions, or insights, or
Hmm.
information, or knowledge. We sometimes think it's always top down, and absolutely not. I remember my 82-year-old mother one time said to me, "Oh, I've learned so much from you." And I'm going, "Really? You're my hero. What are you talking about?" Right? Like that's, but it just shows you that you can get so much,
It,
and it doesn't have to be
it
one
comes from
way.
everywhere, everywhere. If you have your eyes open,
That's right.
there's lessons everywhere.
That's right.
Like the
That's right.
highlights, the lowlights. Yeah. I want to meet your mom. Sounds like she's pretty
Uh,
amazing.
cool woman. Like I said, my bringing was just focused on, hey, you be you. Do
Mm.
don't let anyone else. And when I sort of look at sort of my audacious roots, much of that's come directly from her. Like so much of it. And it wasn't, and the key in this, it wasn't about the things that she said. At no point ever did she say, "I want you to go and be audacious." She just did it, and I
Mhm.
followed that pattern, and that's such a beautiful thing.
What do you think she saw in you that unlocked this aspect? Like she gave you permission. She created a container and she gave you permission, and she also shattered kind of the I think so many people have these rules or illusions of like what is happiness, what is success, what is presence, and it sounds like she disrupted those at an early age that gave you this curiosity.
So what I come to realize, and so it's interesting when you're able to label something, you understand it better. But in the moment, you've
Yeah.
got no idea what it is. And so
Yeah.
what I've come to understand is that's exactly who she is. That she was just being
Mm.
herself and allowing me to be myself as well. Now, it was interesting. I'm a father of three myself, and what I realized is that our kids will do things that drive us absolutely crazy. They just I've got no hair, but we'll pull out the hair that you have, and it drives you crazy. But those are the things that, when they become adults and leaders in this world, are the things that people will look to them for and aspire to be. And
Mm.
they will motivate people. Those same traits that you're like, "Oh, don't do that." But you're like, "Yeah, I'm glad you did that as you become an adult." And so that was very much me. I drove her crazy as a kid, but when I grew up, she's like, "Yeah, I appreciate that you do that. You stand up for yourself, that you question things, that you don't just settle." And so I think that was, but
That's
really,
awesome.
she was being herself and allowing me to do the same.
Oh, that's awesome. And I have two, 10 and 12-year-olds. And so that's good for me to hear, like that their passions and their quirks and their things that um, have that potential to crack into whatever magic they're meant to bring into the world. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah. And I really do think, and this will tie directly to your book around living real, authenticity is an important conversation to have, because when you
Yeah.
allow individuals to be themselves, you're not limiting. You're not saying, "Oh, I can, and I'm not sure." And we all know that there's enough fears and doubts and suspicions or uncertainties in the world that will play a number on us if we let us. So it's very important that we within ourselves have to be authentic in our way of being.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So it's interesting. If I were to share the thesis of the book,
Yeah.
it's this idea that life is like a sine wave. It has highs and it has lows, but somewhere along the line, we've learned to put the lows, the hard emotions, hard feelings, hard things, put them in a box, put some duct tape, and put them in the metaphoric basement. And every time you pack away hard things, every time you put those hard things in the basement, you might think you're making life easier and like more polished and all of that. But every time something goes in the basement, you put a similar sized box on the second floor. Where's your joy? So all of a sudden you have a basement, first floor, and second floor. Now you're only living in that first floor. You're shallowing your life. You're not
Mm,
feeling the hards, but you're not feeling the joys. And it's in that shallowing that relationships thin, that life gets flat, that we feel more lonely, that we experience burnout, that we have these surging depression and anxiety. And so it's a little counterintuitive if people are saying, I don't feel my full self. I don't feel like myself. And I'm saying, go into the basement. They're thinking, you're crazy, lady. You are crazy. And the anticipation of going into the basement and unpacking some of those boxes is so much worse than the actuality. And we've almost forgotten the joy of that second floor. That is where that delight is.
yeah.
So I'm struck, just like the link between your earlier story is your mom didn't put things in the basement. She was like, let's do this.
Sure.
Right.
Absolutely.
And as a result, you have a really rich life.
Well, thank you. No, that analogy resonates with me. I use a somewhat similar one where I talk about the hills and valleys of life. So
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
hills, right, everything is wonderful. There's joy, there's fulfillment, there's satisfaction, there's happiness, there's positivity, all the things that get us excited about life. But as life goes, as a continuum, and so sometimes you are going to get that dip. And in the valley where we're at, it's not fun. It's icky. It sucks. It's negative. It doesn't feel good. And so the reality is first acknowledging that we're all going to get to those dips. It's a natural part of
Yeah.
life. Once we get there, we have some decisions to make. How long do we want to stay there? Right? That's entirely up to
Mhm.
us. And the way we figure our way out of that valley is finding those things that bring us that joy. So yes, this sad thing happened to you today, but when I go for walks, I kind of feel a little bit better. So go for a walk. Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's how you start to build yourself up, where you get back up to that hill again, where you can go, yeah, 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 we're good again. Right.
I
Not
can
to
do
not
that. Yeah.
act like those bad things didn't happen, because they did. They're there. Yes. But what do you do when the bad stuff
100%.
arrives? That's really the question.
That's such a poignant, and I think sometimes it's easy to see someone like yourself or myself and be like, oh, life is easy. Like look at where they are. Right. And this book actually came out of, I had 5 deaths in 5 months. It was like
Mm,
whack-a-mole. And the first one was my closest family member. And I spent, a week in the neuro ICU and then a week in hospice. And it really knocked me off kilter, but then it kept on happening. And the most beautiful part about that was it forced me to do it differently. Rather than just kind of pull myself up from my bootstraps and keep moving, it really forced me to ask different questions and to feel into
mhm.
different parts of myself. And um and it invited me to have different conversations with people. And I think that's what I see with such reverence in the work that you do, is it's about engaging in those real conversations, like
Mhm.
moving away the BS, moving away the positive filter and being like, what's happening for you? What is
Yeah.
it that you're
Yeah.
passionate about? We spoke briefly about this book that you're working on, and like
Yeah.
the passion there is palpable, right? And
Yeah.
so I think we all go through hard times. If we can metabolize those and hold on to kind of the core of our soul, or the core of who we are as we go through adversity, we come
Mhm.
out like just more dimensional,
Of
more
course.
layers, more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I share that because I think, I don't know who's listening, but if you are going through hard times, like, open into it as much as you can
Keep
and
going.
feel it. Yeah,
Right.
and keep going and keep
Right.
going, and
Right.
turn to the people who
Yeah.
bring you that light, help
Yeah.
you see yourself. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So all of that, yes, 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 for sure. The thing that really I think is so important, and people do this a lot, and I can admit myself, I've done it for reasons of pride, where I'm going through something, I don't want to tell nobody, I don't want to share it, I just want to
Mhm.
sit in my hole by myself and figure it out. And what happens is that we lose the opportunity to get the natural organic help that's out there, and that help that I'm referring to is by me sharing.
Yeah,
Camille, I was doing this thing, it was really hard, and Camille will go, oh, yeah, I did that last week, and here's what I did. Right. So
yeah,
because it's really easy to think that when we're going through a tough time, nobody on the planet has any idea what it feels like, has gone through it. You are the first one in the history of mankind to experience this thing. And the truth of
yeah.
the matter is that's more than likely incorrect. And more than likely, there's someone out there that's done what you've done, experienced what you experienced, but they finished their story because they got to the other side of that. Whereas I'm still sitting there going, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Right. And so
Yeah,
the
yeah,
importance, I think that underscores the importance of sharing. Right. Because, and I know
yeah.
it's as hard as it can be, but, and to your point, you said sort of being open, like being open, sharing, and allowing that help to naturally come. Because if you do, the help is out there.
100%. And if you, just because it doesn't show up in the first place you go, keep looking, right? Like, when some people might be uncomfortable with it, pivot, find another person. There's people out there. And if someone comes to you asking for that, what I experienced you describing was presence, being present to what someone's going through, that just being present to someone, even if you haven't navigated it, is a huge gift. You're inviting that person to be real. You're saying, you don't need to shallow with me. I see all of you
Hmm.
and we can figure it out together. So absolutely love that courage you just breathed in because that we
Mm,
need more of it.
we do, we do. Let's dive in a conversation of success, if you will. And I think when I sort of think about what the chase that many people are on chasing, these external markers for what they believe success is, but at the end of it, oftentimes people are still feeling unfulfilled. Why do you think that happens?
Yeah. Um, to say read chapter 2 is not fair. But I did hit on this because I think there's so many illusions that we bought into, right? So many people hear success is power, fame, and money. And if you get a big enough bank account, enough power in your job, and enough fame, then you'll be happy. And invariably, that is actually a much harder road to hoe, is to hit that level of success
Hmm.
and still feel empty. And there's a frame called toxic success syndrome, which is those people who constantly are going after that next bar, that next thing, that next thing, that next thing, and they hit the peak of their game and they're left wondering.
Right.
Um, and I'll share it as a story. I actually just got a text message from him last night. It's a college friend of mine who's a kind of world-renowned electrocardiologist. And it turns
Okay.
out if you read the book, you will for people in the listening who read the book, that you'll find out that I needed an electrocardiologist really badly. And I am now a bionic woman. So anyway, this friend who is also my cardiologist was reading the book last night and he sent me a picture of it. Um, but he actually started the conversation probably like 5 or 6 years ago. Now, he is an absolutely ripped dude with 4 kids going to like premier colleges and like a lovely wife, and like life looks easy for him. And he looks like he has it all dialed, and he does. He
Right.
has a lot dialed. But
Yep.
he turned to me and he said, "You're going to live longer than I am." I was like, "I don't know, Seth. You've seen my heart. Like, what are you talking about?" He said, "The most important thing for longevity in life is your friendships and the quality of your relationships." And Peter Attia speaks to this in his book, Outlive, chapter 16. Relationships really matter. It's the quality of those relationships, it's the depth of those relationships, it's the authenticity. So
Mm,
the world might have said power, fame, and money, and
right.
those are quantifiable things we can go towards.
Hmm.
I would argue, there's a great book. Um, the Ronnie Ray is the author, and she talked about 5 things people regret on their deathbed. None of them are tied to power, fame, and money, right? It's
No.
the relationships, it's the memories, it's the connections. And all of that is what you're doing about living audaciously, engaging, and like, yeah, you're going to fall on your face. Yeah, it's going to be scary. Yeah, you're going to do some really hard things and might not be worth it every time. And that's life. That
So we
fair?
almost have to, I was gonna say, we almost have to like redefine success or what we think success is.
Okay, so that is in the title, redefining success, presence, and happiness, and that is the gateway, right? It's like, what do you want as it relates to a fulfilling life? What does success mean for you? What does it mean to be present for the ones you love? And where do you find happiness? And I didn't put that as the title because I think it's really scary. It feels like a big thing to say, what is my definition of success? And the book is really a gateway into listening inward and starting to say, okay, let me peel away what other people told me. Let me like connect into where my highs and lows have been. And like, let me start that path of defining for myself. It's also why we have communities coming together because it's hard work to do on your own. Like defining success is is absolutely vital, and it's one of those things that people want to lean into and
Hmm.
start to peel back the layers, and it happens over time. It's why I'm fascinated about your mom because she really gave you a tableau, a white tablet, a white slate, clean slate of like you can do anything.
I mentioned she's 82, and she literally just shared with me maybe last week. She
Uh-huh.
said, "My best days are ahead of me," and I said, "Wow, okay." Cool. Let's go with that, man. And she meant that. She meant that. Like when she delivered it, was like, my best days are ahead of me. I can't wait. Like and to live with that sort of passion and energy, it's yeah, it's definitely inspiring for sure.
Did you ask her why she says that? Because I would imagine she's like gotten rid of everybody else's shoulds and she now knows her own shoulds, like wants, desires.
I didn't ask me. That's I mean that's a good follow up question. Because when she did, I laughed at first initially. I just laughed. We spent a lot of time
Yeah.
laughing, so I chuckled for like 10 minutes. And okay, well, no problem. And we kind of went
Let's
through
do
that,
it.
and so. But yeah, that's a good follow up question. I'll have to circle back with you on that one.
Yeah. She sounds like an absolute delight.
Absolutely, she is. She is. So, in keeping with the brand, then I've got to ask, what role does Audacity play in sort of stepping out of this sort of conventional definition of what success is?
That's um I mean, it's everything, I think, right? It's
Mhm.
like, so I will also tell you another funny part about the book, which was like I had no interest in writing it. And and then a couple things happened and I had this like week open in January. I was like, well, okay, I guess I'll do this. And I was like, should I go write it by the beach or by the snow? And I was like, I love skiing. I love so
Right.
I literally sat with this question and I emailed a girlfriend of mine and I said, I know you have a condo on the beach. Like, is it available? She's like, it's only available 1 week this quarter. And it was the same week. And I was like, okay, beach it is. Would you believe that it snowed for the first time in 13 years in South Carolina? So I was at the beach with snow where it never has snow. I mean, so it's just these moments of like, okay, I'm listening. I get it. I should be doing
I
this.
love it.
Um, and then in February, I asked this guy who I have total reverence for and has a lot of sage wisdom. I said, if this book is going to get out and to the world and have the biggest impact it should have, when should it be published? He's like, June 9th. And I was like, excuse me? He's like, well, you asked the question, like, if it was going to have the biggest impact in the world, when would it be coming out? June 9th. I took it home and sat with it. I said to my husband, it was February 11th. And I was like, honey, he's like, go for it. I got the family. Like, go for it. And so like that is audacious to have a book come through that quickly.
Yeah.
But then also to just be like, okay, if this is meant, show me the way. And I have to say, I've been humbled a lot in my life. And I've had a lot of, you know, Mount Everest that I've
Sure.
climbed, things, adversity and what have you. But this has been quite a ride because I'm like, okay, now I'm asking more, like, what am I meant to do rather than what I want? What do I want to do? It's like, what am I meant to do? Because the path opens.
Yeah.
Is that
And
is that
that's
a good answer to
no,
audacious?
it absolutely is. And I just love the way that it's essentially you were given permission, right? Like it's okay, let's do this, let's figure it out. And what that does, it sort of strips down the what ifs and I can't do this. And it just says, just go. Years
The
ago,
ego, the expectations, yeah,
yeah,
all
yeah,
those
oh
things
yeah.
that like limit.
So I'll tell you, years ago, I've been podcasting for a while. This podcast
Yeah.
is going on 5 years. It's 500 plus episodes. I'm blessed to have the conversation I've had. But I actually, my very first podcast was back in 2008, and I probably did a couple few. I've probably done 5 or 6 actually different podcasts since then. And then I took a bit of a break. Pandemic hit. I needed something to do. I said, "Hey, let me jump back into podcasting and re-energize myself." And I remember as I was kind of going through that process, I was going, "Yeah, but you haven't podcasted in a while. Yeah, but the last time you did it was dinosaur years ago. Yeah, but you know how many podcasts are already out there? Yeah, but like you don't even know how to do this stuff anymore." That was 5 years ago, and 500 episodes later, I'm still going. So you just got to keep
Yeah.
pushing.
And so for everybody who's listening, if I could just like shine the flashlight on that,
Mhm.
the doubt volume, that voice inside that like you can't, you shouldn't, who are you? That voice can be really loud and it
Sure.
can it can have sharp elbows poking people out. But what you did was audacious and you turned down the volume of the critic and you
Hmm.
turned up the volume of the like, what if I don't
That's
do
right.
this? What would
That's right.
and that's such a simple metaphor to just notice the critic and turn it down so that what might become can breathe and live and inspire others. It's awesome.
Well, quite frankly, Camille, if I listened, you and I wouldn't be talking today. This would not have happened, right? And so
Yeah.
let's follow that train further. Right? We talked earlier about someone might be hearing our conversation, take from that. That person that's going to hear something what we talk about wouldn't hear it because we wouldn't be talking because I didn't start a podcast 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Like
Amen.
it's that's how it
So
flows,
true.
right? That's how it flows.
And also just, I think there's a part that is can like is nuanced, which is there's a surrender in it, right? You stepped up and you did the podcast, not like I will, this is the I'm going, but like you put it out there and you're like, I'm gonna take this step. It's gonna be a leap of faith. I don't know what it's gonna look like. I'm gonna open into it. And for people who are listening and they have that little inner voice and they are have this little curiosity, like go for it. Go for it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And yeah, go for it. Great words. Um, we're sometimes we talked about earlier about sort of chasing success or what we define as success, and I'm wondering, how can someone know that they're actually chasing something that belongs to them, as opposed to,
Mm.
maybe our parents instilled something a long time ago that we've just carried, and we go, yeah, this is how it's supposed to be. I'm supposed to be a doctor because my mom told me that when I was 5 years old.
Yeah.
Or like, how does someone know they're on the right path or their path? A better way of putting it.
It's a great question. And there's a saying that I love, which is it's hard to paint a chair when you're sitting in it. So sometimes it's hard to see yourself. It's sometimes hard to see like what's happening in this moment. But I think there's a number of ways that you can start to peel that onion or pull the leaves off an artichoke to get to that heart. Sometimes it's helpful to say, what was I raised to become versus what is it that's my desire to become? What was I raised to marry versus what is it that I'm attracted to? And you can start to peel back those layers
Hmm.
of the shoulds. Um, Another way to think about that, I mean, they say you think you've hit enlightenment, go spend 2 weeks with your family and you'll start to hit some of your stuff.
Yeah.
So family time with your family of origin can sometimes help you peel back those layers. Dear friends can help you peel back those layers. And then I think I'm in this period right now of uh, being so humbled by nature
Mm.
and specifically trees, forests and trees. And I met this woman and she has this incredible practice called pine. And pine is both what is it we pine for, but also the pine trees have these roots deep into the earth and branches way into the sky. And I think sometimes when you go out in nature, you can connect with nature and root down into the soil and what it is that you came from and what are the things you value while also having hopes and aspirations. I realize this is a little bit of an abstract. What I would
Oh,
ask people to do, and you and I can work, is we'll put something in the show notes, a link to a resource called Listening Inward, because to to define success, you need to be able to listen inward. And sometimes that's hard to hear with all the technology and news and social media and shoulds and volume. And that's why I think
distractions. Mm.
nature is really powerful.
Yeah, no,
Early mornings, late nights, those are good too.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Nature.
So on that vein, then, what role does resilience play in sort of helping sustain this life that we're talking about, the life of success?
The great question. So if life is about the highs and the lows, eh, let me step back for a second. This concept first came to me when my dad called me to tell me that my grandmother had died. And I was really, really, really close with her. I had been living in Africa working for the State Department. I had just moved back to go to grad school. I had roommates that I didn't know. It was like the second day of classes. And I cried and cried and cried and cried. She had been ill. She was 95. She'd had a full life, but I was feeling so many feels. And my dad said, Sweetie, I just want you to hear yourself sobbing. And I cried some more. And he said, No, listen to that sadness. And at the time, I was like, WTF, Dad? Like, come on, I'm crying. He's like, very few people know the depth of the sadness you're feeling because they don't know the heights of that love. And so when you think about celebrating hard things, it's because you can feel the high things. And we need resilience to have that full range. We need resilience to be able to come through those spaces, come through those opportunities
Hmm.
and believe in something bigger, right? So that is, I think, an adversity or a heartbreak that everyone can resonate with, and
Hmm.
to reframe it to say, what if you were celebrating that as a testament of your love?
Right, right.
Yeah.
when I hear resilience, many times I've heard it's defined as you talk. It's come to me now. Oftentimes we hear resilience as it's a way of bouncing back, right? Like you're bouncing back
Hmm.
from hardship, and I realize I'm taking it literally, but I actually believe you're bouncing forward, right? You're not falling back. You're actually going forward, and that's what and resilience is what pushes you into those things, leaning into them, as you said earlier, leaning into those things that are hard and difficult.
And taking the lessons forward with you, right? Like
Yes,
when you
yes.
have resilience and you don't put everything in the basement, you're like, I learned here, I learned here, I loved here, I got hurt here, but you bring that forward, as you say, so beautifully, so
I don't.
beautifully.
I really believe that a mistake isn't really a mistake unless you walk away without the lesson. That's when you made the
Yes,
mistake, right? Like if you walked
totally.
away, if you find yourself doing the same thing again, then you didn't learn the mistake the first time, right? And you got to go through that very
Hmm.
same lesson to learn it. And so that's why I think is that the true mistakes has been made if we're not paying attention. Um,
Absolutely.
so, so actually, for context, that you also you work with organizations and leaders, or who primarily do you focus on?
I work with organizations and leaders.
Okay.
Oftentimes, I'll come in and I'll work with a CEO, a C-suite executive, and then I'll come in and work with the team below them. So we have maybe more intensive work with the executive, and then we have, and a lot of times, what we're doing is really smart, really passionate people, giving them a shared language so that they can connect and engage and almost put like a foundation of leadership. So I find so many leaders move up quickly because they're
Yeah.
resilient, they're scrappy, they're smart, they're hardworking, and they have everything. If you just put a solid foundation of a shared language and the mindset and some of these tools, all of a sudden the entire team takes off. And so, working with the executive to get those skills is one thing. Getting their team firing on all these cylinders is phenomenal. And we are actually, so we have that kind of training that we can do asynchronously and in person. And then we're building out a technology that's coming out in about a month, which is going to be able to bring that to the next level down in their organization. Because I believe everybody wants to be a better leader. And if
Yeah,
I'm a
yeah,
better leader, I'm going to be better at home. I'm going to be better at work. I'm going to be better in my community.
yeah,
I'm going to be
yeah.
better to my body, my well-being. So we're talking, we're looking at the whole. While I work with organizations and companies typically hire me, I'm really invested in the whole individual.
Thank you for
And
making that connection. No, thank you. It really is
yeah,
because it's powerful. We oftentimes think, well, I am this. We're the same person, regardless if we're at work or at home. And so to make that
yes,
try to separate ourselves and well, I'm not that. No, we are the same individual. So if you want to be a better leader, I believe you start by being a better person, and then everything flows
100%.
through. So
That's a great example of some of the illusions. Like work-life balance is an illusion. Like
yeah,
I who I am at work and who I'm at home, that's like separate, that's illusion. So starting to see these pieces, because what you're saying about integration is like I need to integrate my head, my heart, my body, my sense of purpose to be the best version of myself, to have that sustainable, enlivened, renewable leadership capacity.
Camille, what's the most audacious decision you've ever made?
Oh gosh. I mean, the book was a pretty audacious book, the thing, but I it's funny. I mean, I moved to Africa with absolutely no plans and no knowledge of where I was going. So that was pretty audacious. Um, and I built a community and I got a job working for the State Department and had a pretty crazy life. I like to think if I'm not doing something audacious every quarter, I'm probably not living. And so this summer I wasn't on my bucket list, but I learned to e-foil, which is like it's kind of been in the news with Mark Zuckerberg, but it's this crazy board that flies through the air and like again, never on my bucket list, but so fun and so
Yeah.
boundary stretching and so challenging. So I don't know. What would you say is your most audacious accomplishment?
Um, at the so at the age of 40, I was going through some challenging moments in my life, and I decided for the first time ever to learn how to ride a bike. And I got on a bike at the age of 40 and learned. And that unlocked and sparked something in me that I'd never experienced ever in terms of the joy, the freedom. And I went back to where the area I grew up as a kid, and I biked around those little parks and laneways, and I just relived my childhood all over
That's
again.
awesome.
But it didn't stop there, because then I decided that I wanted to keep biking. I biked all over the city, and I decided to do like this 100 kilometers here in Canada, 100-kilometer bike ride to Niagara Falls, and did that. It was like a 14-hour bike ride, and it was just such a thrilling experience. And I think the part of that, and so yeah, it's cool I did all that, but I think what was really cool for me was it gave me what I needed to get through that period I was going through. Because as much as people think that our lives are perfect and they're all great, they're not. And I was struggling
Yeah.
and I was challenged, but I didn't let that stop me from doing something pretty cool. And so and that wasn't a plan. It wasn't like I said, I know how I'll get out of this, I'll just do this. And but I think, and part of the reason why I asked you that question, what the most audacious thing is, because we, our lives when we live them forward is very much like an art, right? We're just kind
Hmm.
of going in the moment. We're going with the flow. Our gut says something, intuition says something, we go with it. But then so we live it forward, it's an art. But when we stop and look back, we can see where the dots connected, and it becomes a science. So it's like I had to do this, to do here, to go here, to do this, to make this happen, right? And so, but the key in all this is I was audacious to take that first step to begin with. And so,
I love it.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, and it was like, I'm going to ride a bike. And then you're like, I'm going to go back to my neighborhood and almost relive childhood on a bike. And then you're like, I'm going to go to bike to Niagara. So it was like, was multiple audacious steps
that's
that
right.
were,
That's right. That's
and,
right. That's
and
right.
it enlivened you. Like I can
That's
just
right.
hear the way you describe it. And so that's like, maybe someone could see that as like a deficit or a hurt or a shallow, like something I never got this experience as a kid. And you're like, no, I'm in the driver's seat. I'm going to create this experience and I'm going to bring it. And then it just stacked magic on magic on magic, which is
So I
awesome.
was telling you earlier about the sharing piece, right? And
Yeah.
so, and how important you share what's going on. So I actually, and this is how I knew it was meant to be. I remember I
Yeah.
said I had this bike thing in my head. I tried. There was a bike that didn't belong to me. I tried it. I wasn't working out, and I said I gotta get my own bike. I'm literally driving down this area, and I'd never seen it before, but it was always there. It was a bike shop, but you get used. But it gets even better because the bike shop was owned by an old high school friend of mine. And so that I go in there and I'm telling him the story. I'm trying to learn how to bike, and he set me up with the best bike ever because he was excited for me. So again, that sharing, and there's so much that comes out because
I love
people
that.
want to help you through your journey, right? And so
So true.
there's so much that comes out of that. Um,
Can I just say, I love that thread that you're pulling through because, in my work with Living Real, I talk about the loneliness and I talk about the burnout. And it really comes from this like perception that the world is closing in and relationships have thinned and they don't know that first step. And it's sharing, it's asking, it's an invitation to someone else. It's beautiful.
no, thank you. It was really an important period. If you were to sort of leave our listeners with a challenge, how they could start living, real as of today, what would that be?
Mhm. I would think about one relationship where you feel most alive and most seen and most like you might not be able to limit it to one, but someone who sees you where you feel like you can be your full self, your full expression, and you're embraced and welcomed. And once you have that relationship in mind, peel the layers. Like, what is it about that relationship? How did you get there? What is it that contributed to that safety, that love, that willingness to share, that willingness to reel, and that depth? Because all you need is one really successful role model to start to say, okay, well, there's some success leaves clues. There's some strategies there. And, you know, with those strategies from that one relationship, you can start to bring small shifts to all your relationships. Is that
I
fair?
do. That's
Would you
very
take that
fair.
challenge with
I
me?
100%. Let's do it. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. I do it. Um, uh, This is so. I mean, first of all, Camille, this has been a delightful conversation, and
So
I was going to
fun.
say, do you want to have some fun? But we've already had a ton of fun already. But I want to throw. I'd really, really quick before we wrap up here. I want to throw up a few sort of rapid fire questions. First thing that comes to your
Oh,
mind. It ain't. There's no wrong answer, right? It's your answer. It's all that matters. And so, if you were to tell me what's the first thing you do in the morning to center yourself, what would that be?
um, first thing I probably do is stretch and like center, but then I have a heart-centered meditation where I often just put, my hands on my heart, and I kind of believe in these four heart attributes: unconditioned, unconditional love, healing presence, innate harmony, and compassion. And if you start from that place and this idea of breathing that in, filling my body, and then filling my room, and then filling my house, it really changes the trajectory of my day. Um, so I think it's starting with that even sometimes before I pop out of bed. I also think it's not fair for everyone to hear this and be like, "Oh, I am a morning person. Like I wake up early, so it's easier for morning people." But it's having that pattern of like connecting into what matters most. And for me, it's the heart center.
A book that
Opportunity to
changed your
serve.
life. What would that be?
Oh, well, I typically say your brain on art, but what's coming to me now is The Wild Edge of Sorrow.
Okay.
And The Wild Edge of Sorrow came to me at one point when I was deep in the grief again, this book popped up, and it really speaks to um, just the grief that's all around us. And it's an invitation to feel. So, I don't know why I'm called to share that one today, but I am. It's a powerful book. I would recommend it by audio rather than the written book because it's one that you kind of experience over time, but it was really lovely.
I think it's only fair to ask, in keeping with the podcast, audacity or consistency. What do you think drives success more?
Consistently audacious. I don't know if I can say that. Um,
There's no wrong
I think you
answers.
have
No
to.
wrong answers.
Well, I would say consistently audacious. And I do think you have to take flyers. You have to take leaps of faith. You have to do hard things. I actually am right now, I was just writing to a mentor friend. I'm taking some big leaps of faith with this technology platform, with this book, and with some stuff that we're doing in our family. And sometimes it feels scary as all get out. And that's why you have people in your life who've seen you over time, who will
Wow.
hold you and will help you, you know, breathe the courage back into yourself when you feel more tenuous.
Success can be best measured by achievement or happiness in your mind.
Relationships, the
Okay.
quality of your relationships, which drives happiness and success.
There we go.
Is that fair?
Lastly, last
It's
no,
fair.
no,
I get to, it's
no,
my
no,
answer.
no wrong answer. You created a door number three, which is audacious in itself. So that I'll give you that one. The last one, if you could give your younger self a piece of advice, what would it be?
Listen, 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 listen inward. I spent so long not like shaming my inner voice and not listening to my inner wisdom, which was often right, right? So listen inward. It's something that I think we all need, but particularly that's something I'm working with my kids on is like um, when my daughter says, "Mom, I listened inward. I do need another piece of chocolate cake." I have to say, "Okay." Because you
Love
might
it.
have a
Love
stomach ache, you might not go to sleep, but I'm going to trust that you're listening inward. A little audacious there.
I love it. And I can relate to that because I would tell myself, my younger self, is that you're absolutely fine with who you are. And you don't let no one tell you any differently. You are enough. And that was something that came to me much later.
Mhm.
I'm like, oh my gosh, I have all the pieces. I have it already. What am I trying to do here? Like, I'm not trying to recreate
Yeah.
myself. So, man,
Amen. Yeah. So good.
Camille,
So good.
this has been so awesome. I've enjoyed the chat immensely. Congratulations on first off the book.
Thank you.
Writing a book is a big deal, so I want to make sure we give it proper props for that because it does matter putting yourself out in the world. Some vulnerable, being vulnerable because that's what you're doing, and to if you especially if you want to write a book that either helps or heals, you need to. That
Yeah.
vulnerability has to be there. So congratulations for that. For listeners,
Thank
I
you.
want to connect with you directly or learn more about your work or get a copy of your book. Where could we send them?
Awesome. Livingreal.aimleadership.com. There's a first chapter of the book. You can buy the book there. There's a lot of resources. You can tune into our LinkedIn lives. We are This is a passion. It is a like it feels like a manifesto that the world needs right now. So we are eager to hear what resonates for you and how we can support you in living more real. It's the time is now.
Absolutely, and we'll make sure that we'll share that with our listeners in the show notes, as well as the listening inward link that you'll provide as well. So we'll do that.
Perfect.
Again, thank you for doing this, man. This has been great. It
So
far
fun.
exceeded all my expectations. I had a lot of fun. I really
All right.
appreciated what you had to share. And again, thank you for
Likewise.
being a guest on the Audacious Living Podcast.
Thank you for bringing Audacity out into the world with such a ray of sunshine and hope. It's really a pleasure.
Thank you. Back, we are here on the podcast. One of the biggest takeaways from this conversation is the reminder that avoiding the difficult rooms in our lives does not protect us. It actually limits us. When we close doors on discomfort, we also close doors on growth, connection, and joy. True fulfillment comes from allowing ourselves to experience the full house, every room, every season, every lesson. What I personally loved about this conversation with Camille was how grounded and real it felt. There was no pressure to fix everything, no need to rush past the hard parts, just an invitation to slow down, reflect, and listen inward. Camille reminded me that the people who matter most in our lives are the ones who are welcome in every room, not just the bright ones, the quiet ones too. That kind of honesty builds trust. That kind of vulnerability builds protection, connection, and that kind of resilience moves us forward, not backward. That is the definition of audacious living. If you want to learn more about Camille's work, explore her book, Living Real, or access the leadership resources she offers, be sure to check out the links in the show notes below. I encourage you to connect with her directly and continue the conversation. Remember, your life is not meant to be lived in just one room alone. Every space has something to offer. Every room has a purpose. And when you allow yourself to fully inhabit, your life, highs, lows, and everything in between, you create something that is not just successful, but meaningful. That is what it means to live audaciously. I want to thank you for spending this time with me on the Audacious Living Podcast. If this episode resonated with you, please take a moment to like, follow, or share it with someone who could use encouragement to open a few more doors in their life. Your support helps this podcast grow and allows these conversations to reach people who need it most. Until next time, keep listening inward, keep showing up fully, and most of all, live life audaciously.
Driven by purpose, fueled by passion. My words got power, my thoughts have action. Motivation, stay gracious. That's greatness. Be all.